VCY America presents Crosstalk, a nationwide call-in program discussing issues that have an effect on our families, our communities, our churches, our nation, and our world. Crosstalk, an opportunity for you to voice your concerns for biblical principles. And now live by satellite and around the world on the internet at vcyamerica.org. Here is today's Crosstalk.
And welcome to a Friday News Roundup today here on Crosstalk. So glad that you could join us. I was combing through stories today, and I cannot believe the number of stories that are coming forth, issues and matters that you need to be hearing about. But how to cram 3 hours of material into 55 minutes of programs is a feat that I don't think we're going to be able to accomplish. But we're going to get right into just a number of stories, and it's amazing once again to see the huge, tremendous push that is going on for the advancement of LGBT-related issues. You'll hear about some of those in just a moment. But first of all, from FoxNews.com, President Obama held a quick press conference this morning facing a slew of economic bad news. So President Obama said today the private sector is doing just fine. Did you hear that? The private sector is doing just fine, but blamed Republicans for not helping out of work teachers and other public sector employees. The private sector is doing fine, the president said, when we're seeing weakness, where we're seeing weakness in our economy, has to do with state and local government. If Republicans want to be helpful, if they really want to move forward and put people back to work, what they should be thinking about is how do we help state and local governments. Obama said that economic recipes being promoted by Republicans are, quote, basically the kinds of policies that would add weakness to the economy, would result in further layoffs, would not provide relief in the housing market, and would result, I think, most economists estimate, in lower growth and fewer jobs, not more, end of quote. The president, here's a quote from Senator Mitch McConnell. He said, quote, the president must be on another planet. You saw job figures last Friday, completely disconnected from reality. I do want to make you aware of an issue. We have received multiple alerts today, e-alerts, that is, from various pro-family organizations. This one came from Concerned Women for America, and it's regarding a vote that's coming up early next week. Matter of fact, it's slated to happen on Monday. Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid has filed closure on the disastrous nomination. This is a press release from Concerned Women for America. The disastrous nomination of Andrew David Hurwitz to the United States Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit. That means a vote on his nomination is set to happen on Monday. Hurwitz, it's Hurwitz, is known as the architect of Roe versus Wade for his instructional role in the decision that opened the door to the killing of more than 50 million unborn babies to date. Yet, still today, Mr. Hurwitz takes pride in his role in helping craft the decision that provided the underlining arguments for Roe versus Wade. Hurwitz proudly recounts how he was referred to as the clerk who wrote the Newman opinion, the decision that served as the basis for Roe when he went to apply for clerkships at the Supreme Court. Folks, we have a man who is known as the architect of Roe versus Wade that is being tapped on the shoulder by the president to be appointed to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. You may contact your senators today. Here's a direct quote from Concerned Women for America where they say, quote, please take a moment to call your senators today and ask them to vote against the nomination of David Hurwitz. The Capitol switchboard number is 202-224-3121. That's 202-224-3121. Later in the program, we'll get your reaction to this, the thoughts here of Concerned Women for America and your thoughts on the president nominating for this position for the Ninth U.S. Court of Appeals, the one who is known as the architect of Roe versus Wade. Well, since we're talking about the president, he delivered a video message for June Pride Month. And I tell you, federal agencies are going like gangbusters, bending over backwards, turning somersaults to do everything possible to promote LGBT. President Obama issued a statement. He issued a proclamation already. No doubt he's going to be holding a special reception and ceremony at the White House as well. But in a video message for June Pride Month, President Barack Obama is praising lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender Americans, describing them as unsung heroes who have bent the arc of the moral universe toward justice. Here's his special Pride Month speech.
I've often said that the true genius of America is that America can change. We can pass laws to right wrongs. We can soften hardened attitudes. Our union can be made more perfect. But here's the thing. Change never happens on its own. Change happens because ordinary people, countless unsung heroes of our American story, stand up and demand it. The story of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender Americans is no different. As we celebrate LGBT Pride Month, we remember the activists and advocates who refused to be treated like second-class citizens. People like Jean Manford and Harvey Milk, who marched and protested and believed in a better future. But we also remember the unsung heroes, the millions of LGBT Americans for whom everyday acts have required extraordinary courage. The young people who came out as gay or transgender to their parents, not knowing what to expect. The two moms or two dads who went to an open house or PTA meeting, not knowing how they'd be received. The couple that got married, even if their bosses or neighbors wouldn't approve, at least not right away. Most of these heroes didn't set out to make history, but that's exactly what they did. Bit by bit, step by step, they bent the arc of the moral universe towards justice. Now it's our turn. So this June, let's take some time to celebrate teachers and students who take a stand against bullying, openly gay and lesbian service members who defend our country with honor and integrity, families and friends who have seen their own attitudes evolve. Perfecting our union isn't something we can do in just 1 month, but we can remember those who came before us. We can summon the courage to build on their legacy, and we can renew our commitment day in and day out to be the kind of people who make change happen.
Bent the arc of the moral universe toward justice. Well, not only did he give that video speech, he's put forth a full presidential proclamation. You can see it at whitehouse.gov. And though he has been declared, at least by one national news magazine, to be the gay president, and all that has transpired under his leadership in this nation to be advancing the more LGBT causes combined than all other presidents before him, yet he says in that proclamation, more remains to be done to ensure every single American is treated equally regardless of sexual orientation or gender identity. Moving forward, my administration will continue its work to advance the rights of LGBT Americans. And he proclaimed June 2012 as Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, Transgender Pride Month. And then he says, I call upon the people of the United States. Folks, that's you. Calling upon you to eliminate prejudice everywhere it exists and to celebrate the great diversity of the American people. And then the audacity to sign this in the year of our Lord. Well, his public embrace of same-sex marriage, just weeks old, sustained applause and a standing ovation greeted the president at a 600-person campaign fundraiser Wednesday night in Los Angeles for gay and lesbian supporters. OneNewsNow.com reports that the president said he would refuse to allow anyone to attempt to reinstate the military's ban on openly homosexual service members, which he had fought to repeal. Signing the repeal of that ban, he stated, was as good as it gets for the president. As good as it gets for the president. Well, folks, you understand what happened in the military? While Americans were busy celebrating the heroes of D-Day, the military was coping with its own invasion of the federal marriage law. After 3 weeks of silence, the Army confirmed this week that it conducted the military's first ever homosexual wedding at Fort Polk Base in Louisiana. According to officials, the ceremony took place about three weeks ago between two uniformed lesbians and was presided over by a member of the chaplain corps. The liberal social experiment with our military continues, said a frustrated Representative John Fleming of Louisiana, who represents that district that houses Fort Polk. As more details emerge, it's obvious that the Army is trying to cover its tracks. When asked, a spokesman for the base insisted it was not a wedding but a same-gender private religious ceremony. Well, either way, it's a plain violation of the Defense of Marriage Act, which outlaws same-sex marriage in government facilities, says Family Research Council. And while some would argue that DOMA is under court review, Louisiana's marriage amendment is not. Clearly states that only marriages between a man and a woman is legal. Representative Todd Akin said it's outrageous and illegal. Once again, he said political agenda has trumped the rule of law. If ever there was a case for the amendments of Representative Akin and Steve Palazzo of Mississippi, this is it. It's the defense authorization bill that passed out of the House just a couple of weeks ago. Leaders agreed to language that would hold the Pentagon's boots to the fire on the Defense of Marriage Act by banning the military from holding marriage-like ceremonies like this one on federal property. DOMA is still the law of the land, and neither the Army nor the Obama administration has the power to change that. Family Research Council says people contact your senators, ask them to adopt the House language in the defense bill that prohibits these same-sex ceremonies taking place on military bases. Well, the State Department, the U.S. Department, is highlighting Pride Month as well on its website, a link to the proclamation by the President, and also are honoring those containing profiles of department personnel who are gay, lesbian, and transsexual, including an Obama political appointee whom the department describes as a transsexual who has been an international development practitioner, academic, and ethicist. The website also posted profiles of 6 homosexual men, 2 lesbians, and 1 transsexual who work for the State Department. I tell you, folks, it is an all-out effort that's going through this Obama administration to promote LGBT, going down through every cabinet level. This week, Newsmax.com reports the 9th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals cleared the way for the U.S. Supreme Court to consider the ban on California's marriage, the gay marriage ban. And of the court's 25 judges in the Circuit Court, only 3 dissented. So this would allow for, despite the vote of the people in California, for same-sex couples to be able to wed. However, the ruling has been stayed until appeals have been exhausted, and that appeal is going to the U.S. Supreme Court. This court could agree to hear the matter in the session beginning in October, putting it on track to decide the case within a year, but it also could decide to decline to review Proposition 8 and allow same-sex marriage to go forward. WND.com reports on what has been the appearance of a coordinated media effort to pressure the Boy Scouts of America, a private organization, to change its membership policy and allow participation by open or avowed homosexuals. A slew of reports have been generated this week announcing that the Boy Scouts is considering that idea. WorldNet Daily says not so. The organization posted an online announcement that says, quote, contrary to media reports, the Boy Scouts of America has no plans to change its membership policy. The introduction of a resolution does not indicate the organization is reviewing a policy or signal a change in direction. Well, we're going to come back here in just 60 seconds. We've got some more issues on this story, stories on these matters here. This is Crosstalk on VCY America.
Back to Genesis with Dr. John Morris, scientist and creation debater with the Institute for Creation Research. Dr. Morris, can scientists recognize the signature of design?
Of course they can, Chris. Yet they claim they can't when they're looking at a living cell or the human DNA containing so much written information. And yet they recognize design in many, many other cases. Have you ever found an arrowhead made of rock? It's not very different from a broken rock, and yet anthropologists are able to tell so much about that culture. Why can't they see the intelligence behind DNA? They claim there is none. The Bible says that they are willingly ignorant. They see the evidence and they choose not to believe it. How much better to go back to Genesis and get your thinking straight?
If you want to know more about the creation evolution issue, visit us on the web at www.icr.org. Back to Genesis is a production of the Institute for Creation Research. I'm Chris O'Brien. Thanks for tuning in.
It's the News Roundup Friday here today on Crosstalk, and bringing forth a number of issues, but certainly there is an all-out push for LGBT-related issues across the nation right now. LifeSiteNews.com reports that the daughter, the number 2 Democrat in the House of Representatives, has come out of the closet and endorsed same-sex marriage. House Minority Whip Steny Hoyer's daughter, Stephanie Hoyer Hemmer, told the Washington Blade that she's been living with a woman for 18 months. House Minority Whip Steny Hoyer changed his mind on same-sex marriage the day after Barack Obama made his own public endorsement. DC Comics has revealed the Green Lantern will be reinvented as a homosexual in their second issue of Earth 2, which hits newsstands. The New York Post reported the superhero announced his sexuality by abruptly kissing his boyfriend Sam. The Lantern's change of sexual orientation comes the same month that Marvel Comics' X-Men superhero Northstar will marry his boyfriend in this month's issue of Astonishing X-Men. Folks, it's being hit from all over. All over it's going on. The Illinois Attorney General, Lisa Madigan, joined a legal effort to impose same-sex marriage on Illinoisans. Something that's going on in Illinois, too, and I'd like to, is brought to my attention this morning by a listener. In Erie, Illinois, the Erie School System, Erie School Board, has taken a stand, a principled stand, voted 5-2 this week to stop using a book called The Family Book as part of its curriculum, which was seeking to promote diversity and tolerance. Well, the book includes, on one page, some families are big, some families are different colors, all families like to hug each other, but on one of the pages, some families have 2 moms and 2 dads. Reaching elementary kids with this book. Well, the school board voted 5-2 to stop using this book. Some parents had objected to that sentence, and I understand that the materials are being promoted by the Gay, Lesbian, and Straight Education Network. And we also understand that the Erie School Board is taking a lot of heat right now from their principled stand for the family. And the calls are coming for them to reverse their decision on this regard. Well, folks, it might do good for people who hold to traditional moral values to contact the Erie School District and tell them to stand firm in this regard. If you'd like to contact them, I checked out their number. It's 309-659-2239. That's 309-659-2239. Oh, it's not just here in the U.S. LifeSiteNews.com reports that the nation of Denmark has voted to force churches in the established Evangelical Lutheran Church to perform same-sex marriage ceremonies inside their sanctuaries, although 1/3 of the denomination's leaders say they will not participate in such rituals. The nation of Denmark forcing churches to perform same-sex marriage ceremonies. Danish Parliament voted by an overwhelming 85-24 margin to compel churches to carry out unions for same-sex couples that are identical to heterosexual marriage celebrations. The law takes effect on June the 15th. How long will it be before that hits America? It's coming, folks. Then let's go to our neighbor to the north in Canada. As LifeSiteNews.com reports, and what organizers of this year's Edmonton Homosexual Festival are calling a milestone, the Premier of Alberta, Canada, Alison Redford, announced over the weekend that she has accepted the group's invitation to participate in the city's Gay Pride Festival Saturday, something that event organizers say no other Alberta Premier has ever done before. The Edmonton Sun reports that almost 3/4 of respondents to an online Sun poll that asked, quote, "Are you pleased to see Premier Alison Redford taking part in a gay pride festival?" Almost three quarters answered no. Well, friends, you can expect things to happen during this month of June. And the alerts began earlier today from multiple sources. This one coming from the National Religious Broadcasters as a warning that ENDA, the Employment Non-Discrimination Act, will be considered next week by United States senators. Senator Tom Harkin is holding a hearing on the Employment Non-Discrimination Act on Tuesday in the Senate Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee. NRB Senior Vice President and General Counsel Craig Parshall will testify at the hearing, focusing on the inadequacy of the religious exemption built into the bill. Senator Jeff Merkley, the chief sponsor of ENDA, as well as Senators Mark Kirk of Illinois, Robert Casey of Pennsylvania, and Susan Collins of Maine, issued a letter last month encouraging the advancement of this bill. Shortly after receiving that letter, Chairman Harkin agreed to hold a hearing on June 12th. He stated, quote, "This upcoming committee hearing will provide an excellent opportunity to build on the committee's previous work and help advance our shared goal of equal rights for all Americans. I am hopeful that working together we will reach a point where lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender persons enjoy the same rights and protections and full equality as all our fellow Americans." Tuesday, that hearing is being held in this committee. And folks, if ever there's a time to contact your senators, it is today. The number to contact your senators to share your views is 202-224-3121, 202-224-3121. Matt Staver at Liberty Counsel mentioned that ENDA is anti-business, anti-free speech, and anti-religious freedom, intended to give special protections to homosexuals and cross-dressers. The bill would restrict small businesses and muzzle those with a biblical worldview. ENDA applies to an individual's actual or perceived sexual orientation or gender identity. Gender identity described as the gender-related identity, appearance, or mannerisms or other gender-related characteristics of an individual with or without regard to the individual's designated sex at birth. Hearing coming up Tuesday in the United States Senate Committee. Washington Times reports that President Obama awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom Tuesday to Dolores Herda, an 82-year-old labor activist and co-founder of the United Farm Workers Union, also an honorary chair of the Democratic Socialists of America. DSA describes itself as the largest socialist organization in the United States and the principal U.S. affiliate of the Socialist International. She's awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom by Barack Obama. CNSNews.com reporting about Attorney General Eric Holder, again before committee hearings on this Fast and Furious. During congressional testimony yesterday, that internal Justice Department emails that use the phrase Fast and Furious, guess what? He says they don't refer to the controversial gun-walking Operation Fast and Furious. Then what does it refer to? It's unbelievable. The Senate committee members produced emails that reference Fast and Furious, but he says, no, that doesn't refer to Fast and Furious. He said instead that referred to another operation known as Wide Receiver, but the emails referred to both programs, Fast and Furious and the Tucson case from where Wide Receiver had been launched, and revealed Justice Department officials discussing how to handle media scrutiny when both operations became public. A number of those individuals calling upon removal of the Attorney General. And here's another interesting case. Fox News talking about a move that comes just months before the state could play a pivotal role in the 2012 presidential election. Florida is trying to purge their voter registration because of things that they found. It was the governor, Rick Scott, began looking for non-U.S. citizens on the voter rolls last year. On the initial search, turned up as many as 182,000 registered voters in Florida who may not be United States citizens. And so they began the process of purging the voter rolls. The U.S. Justice Department says, hold on there just a moment. This is in violation of the law. It can't be, you're less than 90 days away from a federal election because the Florida primary coming up on August 14. And further, this is, we don't have approval from us for doing this. Well, state officials have said, we're going to continue our quest. We're going to purge these rolls. Can you believe it, folks? 182,000 registered voters who may not even be United States senators. And the Justice Department is saying we will vigorously use this Voting Rights Act against the state, ordering Florida to stop doing this. They've been putting orders out against states that have been showing the photo ID at the polls. Well, come to find out, this is, it's so ironic. This headline caught my attention. Massachusetts Democrats implement voter ID law at their own convention. As they meet in Massachusetts with their delegates, the party convention, the votes of these delegates are going to determine whether there are primary elections for their party nominations. And they said with so much at stake, they have decided to implement voter ID requirements at the Democratic Party convention. I guess they didn't get the memo. LifeNews.com reports more than 150 city stand-up rallies are being held across the nation at noon local time today to stop this mandate of the healthcare mandate from going into effect. Today is the 223rd anniversary of the day that James Madison introduced the Bill of Rights to the first Congress, including what would become the First Amendment. Rallies being held all over the country today in this regard, and anticipated the U.S. Supreme Court will be issuing their determination on Obamacare very soon. Media mogul and population control advocate Ted Turner recently told Citizen journalists that he would like to reduce the world's population by, listen to this, by 5 billion people, asking parents to be a one-child family for 100 years. He had to answer for his history of provocative statements and made a few new ones when members of the website wearechange.org caught up with him on camera late last month. One individual asked the CNN founder what his goal was for world population. "I think 2 billion is about right," Turner said as he walked briskly away. In October, the number of people in the world reached 7 billion. Before disappearing around the corner, Turner said he hoped to eliminate 5 billion people through the one-child family. The interviewer responded, "One-child policy?" Turner responded, "For 100 years. China hits a couple with a record fine for having a second child. If you thought it was costly to have a child, consider how much one couple in China paid for violating China's one-child policy, having a second child. The parents were fined in U.S. dollars the equivalent of $204,114. Local family planning authorities worked with commerce, industry, and township officials to investigate the couple's finances. The couples were deemed rich in assets and hit them with the highest fine on record. The YWCA mobilizing young women to vote in November for their reproductive rights, reports CNSnews.com. Reinforcing feminist mission, the YWCA is launching a Get Out the Vote drive, urging young women to participate in an election described as critical to the well-being of women, girls, and people of color. At the YWCA, we are doing work to mobilize more young women to the voting booths, said Danielle Mars-Caper, the gender equality coordinator for the YWCA's Orange County, New York chapter. She wrote in a newspaper column this November, young women will ensure that anti-choice politics does not decide the future of our reproductive rights. She also plugged Planned Parenthood in that column. She said, as staff of the YWCA, an organization which provides both a social service and social justice agency, we're familiar with the lives of women who need the affordable care that Planned Parenthood offers. We'll be back in 1 minute. You're listening to Crosstalk.
Technology continues to expand the ways we can send and receive audio files, and the Crosstalk program is no exception. The most current way to hear Crosstalk is live at 2 p.m. Central, repeated at 8 p.m. Central on the VCY America Network, or on the internet at crosstalkamerica.com or from Shoutcast, or use the VCY America app for your iPhone or Android. There are MP3 files of the most recent programs available at crosstalkamerica.com. But sometimes it makes more sense to have a program on CD to listen again, or to give to a friend or relative, or even to play for a church gathering. Order Crosstalk CDs for a donation of $6 each by calling 1-800-729-9829. Just mention the date or dates of the programs you need. Or mail your request to VCY Tape Ministry, 3434 West Kilbourne Avenue, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 53208. And again, that phone number for Crosstalk CDs is 1-800-729-9829. That's toll free, 1-800-729-9829.
A couple more stories here, then we'll get to the phone lines. And also at the close of today's program, a special presidential tribute as we remember the life of Ronald Reagan. It's this week that marks the 8th anniversary of his passing, his death, June 5th of 2004, and a special tribute that I trust will be a real blessing to your heart. WND has a story, though, I thought you'd be interested in. Mitt Romney promoted his education plan at a campaign stop at a charter school in Philadelphia, whose leader is an Islamist activist, has been associated with President Obama's campaign and education efforts. Romney last Thursday reportedly held a roundtable at West Philadelphia's Universal Bluford Charter School, where he also was given a tour of the facilities. ABC News reported it was Romney himself who asked for an invitation after hearing about Universal. Universal company that owns the school was formed in 1993 under the direction of Gamble, who also goes by the name of Luqman Abdul Haq. Islam scholar Daniel Pipes documented that Gamble once remarked of his company's presence in Philadelphia, quote, "We are not just here for Universal, but we are down here for Islam." We have talked about on previous programs about the Parental Rights Amendment. Homeschool Legal Defense Association, through parentalrights.org, has announced now that this amendment to the U.S. Constitution that would preserve the longstanding traditional right of parental rights to direct the upbringing and education of your children, well, it's been now officially introduced in Congress. The lead sponsor, Trent Franks of Arizona, joined by 32 co-sponsors in introducing House Joint Resolution 110. That's HJR 110 in the House. The Senate version, Senate Joint Resolution 42, SJR 42. It was led by Senator Jim DeMint, had 9 co-sponsors at its introduction. By the way, in Pennsylvania, click it or ticket. It's not just for people anymore, at least in Pennsylvania. Police and animal control officers are authorized now to cite drivers with unrestrained animals in the car. That includes the back of a pickup truck. Violators can be fined $250 to $1,000 per offense. So make sure Rover and Muffy are taken care of. Well, folks, maybe you want to comment about some of these stories here today on Crosstalk. Our number, 800-733-9829. That's 800-733-9829. Maybe there's some other issue going on in the news or in your locality that you'd like to bring to the forefront today. 1-800-733-9829. You know, we have these governmental bodies that are promoting abortion and Planned Parenthood and all these kinds of things, and yet we have the mayor of New York City, just a little over a week ago, that he came out proposing a ban on these supersized sodas and other sugary drinks. The first in the nation ban would limit sweet drinks to 16 ounces at venues across the city, from restaurants to streetcars. No, it's bad for your health. Don't drink more than 16 ounces of soda. If you want to kill your baby, go ahead in the womb. No problem there. Just don't drink more than 16 ounces of soda. Also, a quick note here. I don't have time to read the whole thing, but an update has been provided regarding Yosef Nardakani, who is being persecuted in Iran at this time, who's been in prison, who's been given the life, or death sentence, I should say, to have his life taken. He did publish a letter. A letter has come forth from him. You can find it at persecution.com. But he does say he'd like to inform his beloved brothers and sisters. He said, "I am in perfect health in flesh and spirit. I try to have a little different approach from others to these days and consider it as a day of exam and trial of my faith. And during these days, which are hard, in order to prove loyalty and sincerity to God, I'm trying to do my best in my power to stay right. What I have learned from God's commandment, I need to remind my beloveds, though my trial has been so long, and as in the flesh I wish these days to end, yet I have surrendered myself to God's will." He went on to say, "I try to be humble and obedient to those who are in power, obedient to those in the authority that God has granted to the officials of my country, and pray for them to rule the country according to the will of God and be successful in doing this, for I know in this way I have obeyed God's word. So I ask all the beloved ones to pray for me as the Holy Word has said. At the end, I hope my freedom will be prepared as soon as possible, as the authorities of my country will do with free will according to their law and commandments which they are answerable to. May God's grace and mercy be upon you now and forever. Amen, Yosef Nardakani. This was published May 30th. You can read the full letter at persecution.com. Let's go to the phone lines here today at Crosstalk, 800-733-9829. Let's start with John in Milwaukee. You're on the air, John.
Hi. Say a great show again, and as you said, there just isn't enough time in an hour to cover all these topics. But what I did want to say is that between with the Obama administration and the liberal left-wing extremist agenda that we have going on in our country, and the lesbian, gay, the LGBT, and the Boy Scouts, and just all of the things you mentioned there, I guess that these are things we're told will have to come to pass, and it's messing up the entire country and the world, but perhaps prophecy is being fulfilled in the end times, and it's a signal to all of us how things they're going to go. And much as God had to destroy the world due to how man was wicked, so much wickedness in the world, perhaps this is a signal to us, as horrible as it may be. Maybe it's just a signal for the end times for us. So I guess that's the only way we can look at it sometimes.
Look up for your redemption draweth nigh.
Exactly. Have a great day.
Thank you, John. Appreciate your call. To Orangeburg, South Carolina. Bobby, you're on the air.
Good afternoon. Yeah, we're talking about ENDA and all the seriousness of the homosexual agenda. It reminded me first that ExxonMobil, the shareholders, which I am one, voted by almost a 4-to-1 margin to reject the homosexual agenda at the recent shareholders meeting. But the scare that ENDA, the Employment Non-Discrimination Act, would offer, and this is more concerning to me than I ever thought, child molesters have long wanted to be able to work in schools and daycare centers.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of places they can't because they're labeled as sex offenders. But what ENDA could do, in theory, with the excuse of sexual orientation, they could actually make it where child molesters would have to be hired by schools, daycare centers, and other places where children work.
You know, there's a number of communities, especially in Kansas, that have been targeted. They call them these bathroom bills, bathroom legislation, because it would give the one who perceives themselves to be something other than what they were created biologically to. So if a man felt he was a woman, it would give him right to go in and use a woman's restroom. And recently, we received a letter from a prison inmate in Kansas in there for a sex offense, who has said that this would be a heyday for sex offenders to pose themselves as people who would be of an opposite gender, so that would give them entitlement to go in there and do their misdeeds.
Yeah, disgusting. And if we don't watch out, we may not even be able to see churches run foster care, child care, or even crisis centers for children, such as Connie Maxwell and Epworth, if Obama gets it his way.
Bobby, thank you for your thoughts from South Carolina today. To Olney, Illinois. Dorothy, you're on the air.
Yes. Yesterday I bought a Globe, one of those papers you check out at the end of the aisle there, and I expected to be something in there about the Queen of England's 60-year celebration, but instead of that, on the front page it's got a picture of Obama, and on the right side it has plus Michelle, divorce papers revealed. And
well, yeah,
it says Obama. It's the end.
Yeah, those tabloids. Dorothy, those tabloids. I really don't want to give any stock to them, because those tabloids have Martians born out of people and all kinds of things there. I mean, they're very, very bizarre stories that are coming out from those tabloids.
Well, it says that the evidence they're going to middle has got the proof.
We just don't give stock to those tabloids, and our recommendation: don't do your business with them. That's my perspective. Our phone number here, 800-733-9829. Let's go to Janice. You're next in Milwaukee. Go ahead.
Yes, I was wondering, since the YWCA no longer really has a Christian attitude towards life, if a person can call them and ask them if they're going to change their name from YWCA to something else.
You know, it's kind of interesting on that topic you raised that the reporter for this story actually tried to do a search on their website to producing the word Christian, and they found it only came up once. This is according to the article. They said it only came up once in their history section as follows. 1858, the first association in the U.S. Ladies Christian Association was formed in New York City, and that's the only reference to Christian they could find.
It's just not named right.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for your call here today. 800-733-9829 is our telephone number at Crosstalk. By the way, on an earlier program, Vic had played the audio of the live action group that went undercover into some of the Planned Parenthood clinics, talking about how they wanted to kill the baby in the womb because of the gender of the child. Well, there's been a third undercover video now that came forth on a series on sex selection abortions, showing 2 more abortion clinics willing to perform the procedure, this time the state of Arizona, where abortions targeting baby girls are a Class 3 felony. It's amazing footage when you go and you hear the gal talk about, well, I want to do this because I think it's a girl, and right away you have the Planned Parenthood person there say, don't tell us that, I didn't hear that, because we won't be able to do the abortion then, and yet continue to facilitate this girl, a Class 3 felony. Amazing reports that are coming out in this regard. Let's go to England. And Robert, good afternoon. You're on the air.
Hi, Jim.
Hi there.
Just hearing Dorothy say that she'd bought a paper hoping to hear something about our Diamond Jubilee celebrations for the Queen.
Yeah.
I thought I'd say hello and thank you, Dorothy, for looking. And quick comment on that. I think it shows the great stability that we have in this country, that we have a head of state who is independent of the politics. And that is one of the positives, but there's a lot going wrong over here and so on. It's not all positive, but it's been nice that we've been able to have a break from that and celebrate a little bit. But there are so many other issues over here, and one of the battles that we've got is whether or not churches will be on the slippery slope, as it were, towards having to conduct same-sex marriages and that sort of thing.
Yeah, amazing what's coming out of Denmark on that very issue now.
Yes, it's one of the issues that we've got. Another issue that's coming to the fore is there's an increasing mood amongst politicians now to get Britain out of the EU. And while a few years back there was a very much sort of pro-Europe mood, it seems now that people are looking towards getting Britain out of the EU, and a lot of us are very glad that we didn't join that euro currency, with Greece, for example, being in such trouble and rejecting the measures that were suggested could help stabilize the economy there.
Robert, thank you for your observations here today.
Yeah, thank you, Jim. I hear the music. I'll say cheerio and blessings to everybody in the USA.
God bless you. We're going to take a quick break. You're listening to Crosstalk here on VCY America, just a few minutes away from a very fitting tribute to a president who was not afraid to mention the name of God and respected him. We'll be right back.
For the Worldview Weekend Minute, I'm Brandon House. Continuing today on our list of 20 characteristics of false teachers. Number 12, false teachers have heard the gospel but reject it. False teachers have heard the gospel but reject it. 2 Peter chapter 2, verses 20 through 21 speaks to this. For if, after they have escaped the pollutions of the world, through the knowledge of the Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, that's the gospel, they are again entangled in them and overcome, the latter end is worse for them than the beginning. What's this speaking of? Well, you have some people who believe they are Christians, like these false teachers profess to be. They maybe clean up their life, get a Christian television program, but they go right back to their sin, just as the scriptures say, a dog returning to his vomit. They have heard the gospel, but they have not repented of their sins, placed their faith and trust in Christ because they are false teachers. And so they have a form of godliness, but reject and deny the power thereof. Another characteristic of false teachers.
This is a News Roundup Friday here on Crosstalk, and just before we air this collage tribute, we're going to pick up one last call here today. This is from Whitewater. Brandon, thank you for calling us. You're on the air.
Yeah, I would just like to talk about Luke Rudelsky of We Are Change confronting Ted Turner.
Yeah.
And what this all comes down to is just the global elite planning this, beast system. And what they want is, this microchip that's going to have all your personal identification, all your financial assets, and it comes down to the choice, of accepting and believing and trusting in Jesus Christ or taking this mark and, falling for the devil's trick.
Thank you, Brandon, for raising the point here today. We do appreciate it. And all the comments that have come in on Crosstalk, not only today, but through the course of this week as well. Quick other note. Louisiana went into recess now this week, capping off one of the pro-life's most successful sessions in recent memory. North Carolina has joined the growing list of states that may restrict funding to Planned Parenthood. House budget passed an amendment there as well. And a troubled abortion clinic in Columbus, Ohio, looks like it's closing this week, according to a local pro-life activist there as well. Praise the Lord for that, is my opinion. Well, today on Crosstalk, we want to close with a tribute to Ronald Reagan. This week marks the 8th anniversary of Ronald Reagan's death. He passed away on June 5th of 2004. And Ronald Reagan had occasion to hear him and at the National Religious Broadcasters Convention. And he was not afraid to speak of his faith. He even dared to mention the name of Jesus Christ in speeches. And I believe it's through the Bel Air Presbyterian Church that has put together a collage as a tribute to Ronald Reagan. And I thought, let's finish this week on a positive note as we so often contrast that which was in the past to where things are in our present. Let's listen in to the tribute to Ronald Reagan.
Someone asked me whether I was aware of all the people out there who were praying for the president. And I had to say, yes, I am. I felt it. I believe in intercessionary prayer. But I couldn't help but say to that questioner after, that sometimes when he was praying, he got a busy signal. It was just me in there ahead of him. I think I understand how Abraham Lincoln felt when he said, I have been driven many times to my knees by the overwhelming conviction that I had nowhere else to go. Now I realize it's fashionable in some circles to believe that no one in government should encourage others to read the Bible. That we're told that we'll violate the constitutional separation of church and state established by the Founding Fathers in the First Amendment. The First Amendment was not written to protect people and their laws from religious values. It was written to protect those values from government tyranny. I've said that we must be cautious in claiming God is on our side. I think the real question we must answer is, are we on His side? No matter where we live, we have a promise that can make all the difference. A promise from Jesus to soothe our sorrows, heal our hearts, and drive away our fears. He promised there will never be a dark night that does not end. Our weeping may endure for a night, but joy cometh in the morning. He promised if our hearts are true, His love will be as sure as sunlight. And by dying for us, Jesus showed how far our love should be ready to go. All the way. For God so loved the world that He gave His only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in Him should not perish but have everlasting life. We all perish. Americans yearn to explore life's deepest truths. And to say their entertainment, or their idea of entertainment, is sex and violence and crime, is an insult to their goodness and intelligence. We are people who believe love can triumph over hate, creativity over destruction, and hope over despair. And that's why so many millions hunger for God's good news. I've always believed that we were, each of us, put here for a reason, that there is a plan, somehow a divine plan for all of us. I know now that whatever days are left to me belong to Him. I also believe this blessed land was set apart in a very special way. Our forebears came not for gold, but mainly in search of God and the freedom to worship in their own way. We've been a free people living under the law with faith in our Maker and in our future. I've said before that the most sublime picture in American history is of George Washington on his knees in the snow at Valley Forge. That image personifies a people who know that it's not enough to depend on our own courage and goodness. We must also seek help from God, our Father and Preserver. We'll never find every answer, solve every problem, or heal every wound, but we can do a lot if we walk together down that one path that we know provides real hope. The morality and values such faith implies are deeply embedded in our national character. Our country embraces those principles by design, and we abandon them at our peril. My experience in this office I hold has only deepened a belief I've held for many years. Within the covers of that single book are all the answers to all the problems that face us today if we'd only read and believe.
Ronald Reagan, the 40th President of the United States, in his reference to the Bible, if only we would read and believe. Born February 6, 1911, passed away 8 years ago this week, June 5th, 2004. A reminder to be praying for our governmental leaders. Thanks for joining us today on Crosstalk.
Listening to Crosstalk via satellite and the internet from VCY America. Views expressed may or may not be those of this station. For a CD of today's program, send a donation of $6 or more to VCY Tape Ministry, 3434 West Kilbourne Avenue, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 53208, or download by RSS or podcast from crosstalkamerica.com. And join us again for Crosstalk.